Good morning and welcome to your Farm and Home Show. My name is Joanna Coles, and this morning we're visiting with Kristin Hildabrand, Warren County Extension Agent for Horticulture. Good morning, Kristin.
Good morning, Joanna.
Now, Kristin, there are always things that we fight. It seems like every year in our yard, and you're going to talk about some of those species that we might need to look for.
Yes, and so what we're talking about this morning on Farm and Home is specifically invasive type plant species, because we're always constantly trying to support native plants as much as possible, but there may be some people that just aren't really familiar what we consider invasive. And with gardening being such a hot topic right now, I think people are really hungry for getting outside and planting different species. So you might find that some of these plant species are actually more on the invasive side. So one thing I want to talk about is just basically what an invasive plant species is. So generally they're non-native to here, so they come in from a different country, and their environment is so different, in their natural environment, that when they come here, usually they produce very well. Sometimes, they may have some issues and things like that, but really what ends up happening is that, our ecosystem here is a plethora of different native plants. So it really does reduce that down, and it makes it harder for them to get established. And so then you start to see an effect that, our insect population goes down. We've noticed, a big drop in pollinators. One of it is like the Chinese, the American chestnut. When they introduced the Chinese, the fungus came through and it wiped out all the American chestnuts. So things like that you'll start to see. It may take a while, but you'll start to see some things. And then as far as, the ecosystem effects, we can see things, later down the road that can be
long-term effects. And a lot of times these plants maybe have some really desirable features. And so we're like, oh, this is pretty, we'll plant it here. But then they call you several months later and say, oh, no.
Yes. And so a good example of that you're talking about there is that at first, when they're introduced, they do really well, and that's the Bradford pear. So it's really the Callery pear, but then the Bradford is just a common variety of that. So generally that color is so prominent in the spring. Everybody loves that, spring color, and it actually established pretty quickly. It was fast growing, and that's what a lot of homeowners wanted. But really it is on the invasive side because, it just really messes up with all of our native species, like our redbuds and even some of our flowering dogwoods. So you'll start to see more thorny type thickets that form off of that Bradford pear. So that's one example. The other one that you think about and might not even is a woody vine that's called trumpet creeper. Sometimes some people call it trumpet vine. I find it attractive just because it attracts a lot of hummingbirds because of that tubular type shape of red bloom that it has. But in other states they consider it more of a weedy invasive type plant. So really pay close attention to what you're buying. And some nurseries may not even realize that they have an invasive species. The same thing with the Joanna shrub, the burning bush, that's also an example of that. So be very, very careful about, some of those plants. Some other invasive plants that are more on the vine type, one you've probably seen is kudzu.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you probably know about it. It was introduced from China, and it's more of a deciduous type vine. It mainly produces vegetatively, but it can just take over.
It's hard to control.
It's so hard to control. So that one is one, and then the other one that we think of that really chokes out and hurts physical structures of trees, English ivy, and also winter creeper will do the same thing. So with our English ivy, it actually harbors the actual bacterial leaf scorch that's a common issue with our maples and some of our oaks as well. So really think about what you're planting in your landscape, in your garden. If you do have questions about some of those things, do some research. You can contact us, or Conservation Office has some great resources that are available to you. We just don't want to see any of these species get out of hand.
Absolutely. Kristin, thanks for the information. If you have questions about desirable species to plant in your lawn and landscape, make sure to give us a call here at the Extension Office. Thanks for watching and have a great day.